Okay, I'll go ahead and get started, and as I usually do, it'll catch up to us, and they came to hear you speak and not me, so I'll make some quick introductory remarks. Again, welcome everybody. We've got a great panel today. My name is Adam Rock. I'm a senior director here at Hiring Our Heroes, and this is one of our tremendous virtual career community sessions. Today is specific though, and it's specific to IT and cybersecurity. We've got a great panel though. This is how this is going to be run. This is one of our industry briefs. We're going to run a panel today. And the conduct is I'll ask some questions, the esteemed panelists will answer them, and then you also have an opportunity to ask some questions of this great group of folks here through the Q&A tab on your screen. There's a chat box. If you accidentally type into the chat box, we'll answer that too. But if you want to go into the Q&A tab and type in a question, we will make sure that it is answered either throughout this panel or at the end of it. But we've got three great companies that have joined us today, but they've done more than join us. They're true partners of Hiring Our Heroes, and we can't thank you enough. So Theta Johnson from Amazon. Theta, great to first of all to meet you. And thank you for all you and Amazon have been doing, especially during this COVID, to continue to hire more servicemen and women and veterans and military spouses. And my buddy Alex Verhulst from Leidos. Alex and I have done many of these together. Alex, it's great to see you again, and to Leidos for your partnership and all that you have been doing during these trying times. And now my new friend, Steve Dazzo. Steve from PayPal. Steve, it's great to meet you as well. And I can't thank you enough for what PayPal is doing as well. So we've got three great panelists. We've got a great panel here today. We're going to jump right into it. So I've got some questions. I'm going to drive the conversation. For those of you out there that are listening, I'm sure you're either in transition, you're a veteran, or you're a military spouse, and you're looking for your next career, potentially, whatever that be, but hopefully it's in IT and cyber with one of these three companies. They're going to give you an opportunity to learn from them, ask some questions, but they're also going to give you some contact information, I'm sure, throughout this, or at least at the end of it, that you can reach out to them if you're interested. A plug for tomorrow, though, this is all leading up to a culmination event tomorrow at Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have a virtual career fair at Hiring Our Heroes. You can go online. I'm sure you've registered already and you're interested in some of the companies that are participating. You've got two great companies here today that are Amazon and I'm sorry, Leidos and PayPal. And so we're glad that they're going to participate tomorrow. So this is just a great way for you to obtain some information from three great companies. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about your company, take a few minutes to do that, and then we'll drive through some of the other questions. So why don't I just start out with Theta? How's that? Theta, if you don't mind, if you could just jump right in.
Sure. My name is Theta Johnson. I'm a sourcing recruiter for AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. That's the tech side of Amazon. It's a very giant organization. So anything and everything that you can think of that goes into a big organization like that, we have opportunities in those spaces. You know, a lot of people think that AWS is all engineers and cloud associates, and it's not. We have operations, program management, HR, sales even. So if you're interested in any or all of those above, this is a great place for you. We are the lowest cost kind of infrastructure cloud support, and we do support over 190 companies across the world, or 190 countries across the world, and we also support the intelligence community. So if you happen to have a top secret clearance or above, we're very, very interested in talking to you, because we have some intelligence community customers that are three-letter agencies that require us to have some individuals with clearances. So we're looking for individuals with and without clearances, and some roles do not require a education like a bachelor's degree or anything like that either. As long as you have some kind of professional or work experience behind that, there's a role here for you too. So super excited to be here today. Excited to talk to you all from Denver. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Thanks, Dave. Great job. How about just Alex? Alex from Leidos, how about a little quick introduction of yourself and a little bit about Leidos?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adam. So my name is Alex Verholst, and I am the Talent Acquisition Military Program Manager with Leidos. I run our military program at Leidos called Operation MVP, which is really all about attracting, hiring, and retaining, transitioning military veterans and military spouses. Um, a little bit about Leidos. So Leidos has been around over 50 years. We celebrated our 50th anniversary in February of 2019. Leidos is actually the legacy SAIC. We rebranded back in October of 2013 from SAIC to Leidos. We bill ourselves as an information technology company, but really we are what I would describe as primarily a service-oriented government contractor. So we do work all over the world, really in four main areas: defense, intelligence, health, and work in the civil market. So like your federal civilian government agencies. We're primarily all federal government work. There's work in pretty much every different clearance level you have, you know, from the high-end polygraph intelligence community type roles, down to plenty of positions that don't require clearance at all, or just public trust or background investigation. We're 37,000 total employees in over 400 countries. And we have, like I said, we have work all over the world. A lot of work certainly in cybersecurity, in information technology, and in those particular skill sets, really, that cover all the four groups that I mentioned, you know, and sort of all of the different clearance levels and experience levels. So a lot of great opportunities at Leidos. I definitely recommend, prior to tomorrow's event, to, you know, spend some time checking out our opportunities, as well as any company that's going to be on the career fair tomorrow. Just so you can kind of familiarize yourself and take advantage of that kind of one-on-one chat format, so you can speak specifically to opportunities with Leidos or any of the companies that are attending, that you've seen, that you're interested in, you know, and then be able to take advantage of that kind of captive audience with a recruiter or manager to get some direct feedback. So again, Alex Verholst with Leidos, thank you for having me, and I look forward to questions today.
Thanks, Alex. Steve?
Hey everyone, it's Steven Dazzo. Glad to be here. I've been at PayPal now for 7 years. Obviously, everybody knows the PayPal mafia term. Essentially, there's 19 of them that formed the original company that have now contributed over $1 trillion to the U.S. economy and separate when they've split. Obviously, democratizing financial services so that everybody, no matter of income level, can have access to financial services. We're a tech company first, obviously. 300 plus million users, 25 million merchants global, 25,000 people internally, globally. Just like Theta said, we hire across the board. I know the image is a tech company, but across the board. Don't think of just your hardcore software engineers, or there's roles across the board, just like any standard company would have. I am talent acquisition. I have fallen to the engineering side. I am a part of our SERVE community, which is our affinity group. I am not a veteran, so let me clarify that right off the bat. This is my volunteer work, essentially. So, and my role is on the SERVE steering committee to increase veteran hiring through different partnerships, and we've increased our numbers and education of hiring managers on how to view veteran resumes. We do training courses on stuff like that. So glad where it's gone. Still a lot more work to do, but glad to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I'm glad you're in this space, you know, a true patriot. So appreciate what you're doing, and thanks for the rundown. I'm going to jump into some tactical level questions now. I think the audience might be interested that, you know, it's the third one on the list if you want, but I think I'd like to talk about the impact of the pandemic and what it's had on your companies. Are you still hiring? Obviously you are, but we talk about, you know, the onboarding process, the types of jobs you have, right now. Why don't you tell the audience what you might be offering there? There's some high demand job that you're looking for. And if you don't mind, I'll bounce around. We'll go back to Alex and I'll go to Faith and maybe end up with Steve again.
Yeah, sure. So our hiring has, it'd be, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that it didn't impact us, at least slightly with our hiring numbers so far for this year. But, that being said, we are actively hiring, and we are actively hiring basically for all positions that are direct bill with our government customers, which is really the vast majority of our positions. The only positions where we've had some that have been kind of put in a holding pattern are for some of our indirect positions. So as a government contractor, those are like the overhead positions or the positions that, again, aren't assigned directly to a government customer, that don't bill directly to a government customer. So, but even with that, some indirect positions, especially high-level management positions, we're still hiring for. But, if, for example, in talent acquisition, right, if a recruiter left and went to another organization or something like that, we might not backfill that recruiting role right at this time. But, if one of our talent acquisition vice presidents, moved elsewhere or something like that, we'd backfill that. So just to kind of give you an idea. But like I said, with the direct bill work we do with our federal government customers, that is still, we're still actively hiring for that. Because we're really diversified with the customers we support, it's very, it's kind of just different depending on the customer. So, we have a lot of work at military installations and at government facilities, and we really have to just follow the guidelines that are in place through, DOD and those particular installations, as well as, the different government agencies that we support. And they're all kind of doing things in different ways, whether they're sort of rotating as far as the workforce, when they come in, and to making sure that they're, the offices there aren't completely filled, and then, like I said, just kind of following those guidelines. And then with work that we have sort of at, our own Leidos buildings, right? We just kind of have to follow the guidelines of particular states right now. And more and more of that is getting opened up and kind of relaxed. As far as, just real quick, as far as kind of our hiring process through this and our interview process, we've really pushed to do an entire virtual interview and hiring process. So through things like Zoom, and through technology, utilizing, video interviewing, and really setting individuals up through both interviewing, onboarding, and hiring, all virtual. Our new employee orientation has gone all virtual. And honestly, as we come out of this and move forward, I honestly expect some of that to stay in place, especially with, virtual interviewing and things like that, because we have hiring managers, we have recruiters all over the country, different locations, and they're not always recruiting in their backyard, so to speak. So I think it's extremely helpful and advantageous that, not only the hiring manager, but a recruiter can get on and speak with the candidate, face to face, so to speak. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I kind of expect that virtual format to probably continue for a lot of the roles we have as we move forward.
Thanks, Alex. Thea, do you mind chiming in now?
Yeah, I'll echo quite a bit of what Alex said, but we're still hiring. We have over 40,000 jobs listed right now, so we have not slowed down whatsoever in the hiring process. There's plenty of opportunity out there to come into AWS and Amazon. I will say that initially when COVID-19 had started, we were full speed ahead. I specifically, one of the programs that I specifically support was the apprenticeship program, and that's very similar to the fellowship program. If anybody knows anything about that, we just own and operate our own, essentially. And that was full speed ahead. However, within the last probably 30 to 45 days, continuing through this pandemic and what it's kind of brought to the table for us, we did see quite a decrease in expected churn. For those that don't know what that is, it's people leaving your job. Right, so that's what companies essentially plan for every single year. Is we have X amount of percentage of churn, right? So we did see a significant decrease in that expected churn. So that meant people were staying in their jobs. And then we did have quite a bit of like interns that we had hired the year before that were coming on. So that did impact my program specifically. So, you know, that was a little bit of an impact. However, Amazon and AWS in general, still full speed ahead, 40,000 jobs, like I said. So my program is kind of pivoting to do some other things to support other businesses that are high hiring right now, high volume hiring, like tech sales and pro serve and stuff like that. So it was kind of a mixed bag of you know, having to deal with the impacts versus there's no impacts. When it comes to the hiring process, we were actually, you know, we kind of had somewhat of a virtual kind of opportunity to interview prior, because we do hire overseas. And so obviously if you're interviewing from Yokota or Yokosuka in Japan or Okinawa, you can't just fly to Seattle for an interview. So we were already kind of doing that as needed. And so it was very, very easy for us to pivot to full hiring processes virtually and on the job training and classes and stuff like that. So it was very easy for us to pivot initially and very quickly. And I think we actually had a lot of companies come to us and ask us, like, how did you pivot so quickly? And we've been able to share that knowledge and, you know, share our processes to help other companies pivot and be successful when it comes to this virtual space that not a lot of companies are used to. And so we did move 100% virtual. All of us who started working from home, if we didn't already. And so now not only do we have the virtual hiring and interviewing process, but we're also doing classes through our vendors. We have a great relationship with a lot of colleges that do our apprenticeship program, so they're doing everything virtually. So the initial, you know, 3 months of in-classroom training is now virtual. And then same thing with OJT. Initially, if you were hands-on in a data center or whatever, you're all doing that virtually now. So we pivoted very easily. It's been very supportive. It was so seamless that nobody really felt anything, which was very nice. So yeah, it's been crazy times, but we're still, you know, full steam ahead. So
that's great. That's great that you're able to do this and without a hitch. How about Steve? Anything on from PayPal?
I'll say piggyback off of both what both said. It's I selfishly wish I could tell you that we did slow down. We didn't at all. It didn't flip on the radar at all. I jokingly said with my boss the other day that I've already hit my hiring goal in 2020 in June. So can I take off the rest of the year? But it's yes, full speed ahead. The only challenges I would say is our offices are technically still closed until October 1. I don't think we'll go back anytime soon. They still want to hire in the specific location in case we do go back to an office. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. Like she said, relocating people is not happening right now. And the issue with that is if you hire them virtually remote, there's tax implications based on where they're sitting. So the whole position's got to change location and all that stuff. With regards to onboarding, there was a little bit of a challenge here because of the supply chain with laptops being broken, essentially. But they basically for compliance reasons, they get shipped to you on your second day of work. So you're already in the system. You're technically an employee. That gets shipped to you the second day specifically. But to answer your question, no, we haven't slowed down a bit. I mean, we haven't seen any pause or nothing. And the biggest challenge of going virtual was the call centers. The customer service support was the hardest ones. Taking them from saying, hey, you're in an office in Omaha and Chandler, Arizona, which has thousands of people, to now saying, hey, we've got to get you all equipment and to be able to do your job remotely. So, and they offered employees $1,000 reimbursement for equipment that you ended up having to buy out of your pocket. But other than that, you can order all of it and they ship it out to you. So I sort of feel a little bit for the desktop teams in the local offices who are putting together the machines and the equipment and mailing them out. I'm sure FedEx, UPS, USPS is loving them right now. But it's but yeah, it hasn't slowed down one bit. It's just been business as usual.
Thanks, Steve. Well, to pay his credit, the Amazon guy shows up at my house about 3 times a day. So you're
Same
right.
here.
Slow down for your companies, I can tell, especially for Amazon. But anyway, okay. I want to jump in a little bit lower then. Let's talk about some of the skill sets, if that's okay, and maybe some of the certifications. We're particularly on this panel talk a little bit about IT and the cybersecurity. Maybe you've got some opportunities out there. I'm sure you do. Maybe some of the specifics of those. But how about the skill sets that you're looking for? Are there any credentials, licenses, or certifications do you think the audience here might need to have, or how do they strive to get them to just get entry into your companies? I'll start with Faye, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think biggest and most important, if you're thinking about coming into AWS, Amazon, in any capacity as far as IT or cyber, is knowledge of Linux. We are a Linux-based company, so even the entry level, engineers or software developers, there has to be at least a few years of Linux practice or knowledge, whether that be a degree, whether it be actually not, physical practice, whatever. We are a Linux-based system, so that's something that myself and other recruiters across the organization always plug and push is Linux. And if you go through our apprenticeship program, that's one of the certifications you actually get is Linux. I think the other ones that are super helpful that I've, kind of heard through grapevines, and it also depends on the role, right? So, one role is going to need a CompTIA certification, another role is going to need Python. It just really depends. But Linux is number one. Python is a big one. CompTIA is a good one. Your typical, IT certifications are not going to hurt or hinder you in any way, shape, or form. We do a lot with, boot camps, full stack developers, front end, back end, from a software development piece. So it really just, depends on what you're looking at doing. I will say you can find a lot of that information. AWS Educate is a great way to kind of boost your resume, both for us and other companies that use our platform. It's free, at your own pace, and you can get AWS certified in cloud support, solutions architecture, that kind of thing. So those would probably be my top three. Is if you don't have Linux or anything else, definitely get AWS certified. Boot camps are a big thing for software development if you don't have a degree. And then obviously, if you're wanting to get into one of our cleared roles, top secret or above, all of our cleared roles do not support secret. It has to be top secret or above. So if you're looking at those types of things, I get questions all the time about, well, what about secret? So if you have a secret clearance, then we would consider you a non-cleared individual for our non-cleared roles. That's how that would work. So if you have a full scope poly, you're a unicorn, and I definitely want to talk to you. We have a lot of roles open that require a full scope poly, and those are few and far between sometimes. So it just really depends on what you're looking to do, and I would really pay attention to the basic qualifications, because those are very straightforward. That's one thing about Amazon and AWS. We say what we mean. And so if it says, PMP is a basic qual, it's a basic qualification, period. And we don't move on those. Preferred are preferred, we can move on those, but basic qualifications, we don't really move on those. So pay attention to those, and then obviously, kind of link in with us and thing like that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to answer this question that just kind of popped up. It says, where does a TSSCI fit in without a poly? It's top secret or above. The only polygraph that we really, for lack of a better word, pay attention to is a full scope. So if you have TS, TSSCI, TS, poly, in between those two, you're considered cleared, and that would be fine. We really kind of hone in on full scope polys for those higher level intelligence community customers. So you have a TS or above, you're good to go for a cleared role in any capacity, unless it requires an NFSP. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, you did, and you answered the other one. This is great. So we're going to ask the other two here to also answer that one too. I have a comeback for you though, Theta. So these AWS education, these certifications, and that you offer, are they free to the veterans and military spouses, or is there a cost?
No, they're free. They're free to anybody. Anybody can. They're general population searches. If you go AWS Educate, it's free for anybody who wants to get AWS certified, and it does help. Like if you were to go, Netflix is one of our customers. If you were to go to Netflix and say, hey, oh by the way, I'm AWS certified in solutions architecture, that would look good for them, and they would like that because they use our platform. So
Excellent.
it just looks good overall for not just AWS but other big companies too that happen to use us.
Thanks. Steve, do you mind tackling this?
Yeah, so obviously obviously outside of the clearance stuff, I can't talk on any of that. And touch that in years. Honestly, we don't, outside of the standard certifications, we don't ever require it for a job. I've seen a lot of PMP. I've seen a lot of the PMI certification. Security, sure, would it help? I always tell people that if you're going to do a basic one, the CISSP or the CCNA is a good one. Those certifications actually have lab work, so it's a two-part. It's a test and a lab work to get it. So those will hold more water. But if you're asking me for a standard one that we require for roles, I've not seen it here. But it doesn't hurt is the other one. So I see the Agile Scrum certification. We are an Agile Scrum shop as a methodology, so that doesn't hurt specifically. But the say requirement, I haven't seen it.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Alex, you want to chime in, please?
Yeah, so as far as a lot of the work that we do within IT services, so we have quite a bit of work sort of in like the O&M side, operations and maintenance side, more of the service side. And I would say with that, primarily DoD 8570, there's basically different levels and tracks. I think there's an information assurance technical and information assurance management track. And there's different levels. And within those levels, there's sort of like a suite of certifications. So for those transitioning from the service, you may already be familiar and you may already have, those certifications, but just familiarizing yourself with DoD 8570, which is really a requirement for our, DoD, our Department of Defense contracts, sort of in that IT services area. So we have, big, like a large program with DISA, for example, that has work really all over the country, where that's, those certifications are a requirement. Of those specifically, I would say if you're, just looking at one place to start, I would look at Security Plus. We do have some programs, like we have a Navy program in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia, for example, that for very junior level positions, a secret clearance and a Security Plus and just a couple years of experience, right, can fit the bill for a junior level type of position. So just to kind of give you an example there, when you get into more of like the cybersecurity side, and especially work within cyber that falls within the intelligence community and those full scope polygraphs that were kind of mentioned, I would say certified ethical hacker, CEH, is a big one that we look for in that area. The way we're structured, honestly, you'll find technical positions, like I mentioned earlier, in all different levels of clearance. Generally speaking, cyber and especially like offensive cyber capabilities, you're going to find more in that intelligence community, full scope poly realm. Software development, software engineering usually tends to lean more towards our work within the intelligence community, where that more of that IT services and kind of back end technical support really sort of is going to be, health, DoD work with different federal civilian agencies like Department of Transportation or FAA, for example. So that's kind of how we're structured. And just real quick, if I can just kind of mention, when you are looking at positions with Leidos, and this isn't something that's groundbreaking by any means, but when you jump on our career site, you can filter based on clearance, you can filter based on skill set, and you can also filter based on group. which can kind of help too, right? Because like I said, if you're looking at, for example, cyber positions within the intelligence group, then you can filter at those positions that, may require a TSSCI or polygraph or something like that. You can kind of help narrow down what you're looking at. Because especially within the skill sets that kind of we're talking about today, there's so many positions out there that it's helpful to sort of use some of those filters to try to kind of narrow down what you're looking at, so you're not just overwhelmed by the number of technical roles out there.
Yeah, you could both, or maybe all three of you, see some of the questions that have come in, but there's a couple on the security clearance. So if I could just stay on that before we proceed, but one was particular there that you see to Amazon. I think it's for all of you. Will you sponsor a full scope poly for a position? Maybe you all three want to jump on that. Theta?
Yeah, usually I would venture to say in general, no, but there are some positions and some teams that will. But as a general practice, we would say, hey, you need an active TSSCI full scope poly for this specific role. The caveat to that is if you come in as a cleared individual and let's say the team moves or you move to a different cleared role or the client is different at that point, then obviously we would sponsor to up you if that client required that at that point. Like that, once you're in, you're not going to have to do any of that out of your pocket. But again, it kind of depends on the team and what they're looking for. In general, not really, but some teams do actually. So it just really depends. And I know that's not a very clear answer, but I would say rule of thumb no, but you sometimes yes.
Alex, and then maybe Steve.
Yeah, so I can, I'll just kind of echo that real quick. The short answer is basically it depends. For example, like the intelligence customer we have up in the Fort Meade, Maryland area. We do have some programs where we can bring people in at, coming out of the service at the CI poly level and bump them up for a full scope poly. Some are even able to start on the program and get a waiver as long as they get their full scope poly within a year of starting on the program. But some we need to pipeline ahead of time. There's other roles and, specifically in software development and specific, types of platforms that you'd have experience in, where sometimes there are pipelining programs to get people cleared in like a full scope poly role. The best way though that you can kind of just eliminate all that is what I mentioned earlier, is when you look at the positions listed on Leidos's website, just focus on the clearance level you have. And if the position is gonna put you in for a higher level clearance, either once you start or further down the line, just kind of look at that as sort of like a nice to have. But as long as you meet the clearance level that's required, that's a good way to kind of simplify it and sort of make sure that you meet that qualification level. And that way, as you go through the process, you may learn, oh, okay, this is a position that's going to kind of bump me up. One other thing real quick, just along those lines, we only list TSSCI with polygraph on our website. We don't make the distinction externally if it's a CI or a full scope. So just kind of keep that in mind, because it's not always going to be transparent to you as the job seeker what the polygraph level of the position is. You can generally sometimes kind of figure it out based on where the position's located, and if the customer's probably not going to be mentioned by name, but sometimes it, by location and by kind of reading through the job description, you may be able to ascertain that information. But in general, just kind of, go in understanding that it may not be clear, but obviously that's where someone like myself comes into play. And as you talk to individuals within any company and recruiters, then you have points of contact that you can get a little bit more information and clarity. And certainly that's, like I said, that's a question that I'm here to help answer as well. But I just kind of wanted to mention that as people prepare for tomorrow.
Yeah, great. Steve, any comments on this topic?
Our government relation works. There is no clearances. So not yet.
Excellent. How about that one question we both see here about the adjudicating agency? Does that matter? Thank you, Theta, please.
Yeah, so I'm glad someone brought up adjudication because I wanted to kind of add on to what we just were talking about when it came to clearances. And I don't know if Alex, if you have a distinction either way within your company, but it's important to note that for Amazon and AWS, you cannot be in adjudication and you cannot be in reinvestigation to be considered cleared. So if you're going through that process and you're waiting for the okay and you're being reinvestigated, we would not be able to talk to you about cleared roles at that time. It has to be 100% completed and posted. And I know a lot of times kind of the left hand to the right hand takes some time, but if you have that memo or that communication saying that, hey, you're good to go, we're just processing it into JPass or SafeCast, whatever it may be, you know, we can't consider anything that's currently being reinvestigated or re-adjudicated. So I'm glad someone asked about re-adjudication. As far as the specific question, I can't see it. So Adam, I don't know what it says.
Yeah, that's what it said. Does the adjudicating agency matter? You answered
Oh,
it.
perfect. All right, great. Yay.
Alex, you want any comments on that?
Yeah, and to just echo what Theta just said, yeah, so if you have a clearance that's in kind of like an interim capacity and you're waiting to get that final level clearance, sometimes that can be kind of tricky. So having the final clearance granted and having that completely, having completed that process is definitely what I would kind of recommend when focusing on that particular clearance level. One thing that and one thing just for especially transitioning service members to be aware of is to know when your last periodic reinvestigation was done and kind of get all those details so that you kind of go in eyes wide open, because I've come across a lot of different cases where individuals maybe are coming up on the 5-year window of their top secret clearance, but they're not able to get that sort of put back in for a periodic review or reinvestigation prior to transitioning out of the service. So just kind of understanding, okay, when was my clearance granted? When was my last reinvestigation? And being armed with all that information can be really helpful as you kind of navigate the job market, because that way that information, so you're not, again, you're not coming into it and getting surprised by anything. And furthermore, you can just educate the company up front, because every company, ours included, will do their own sort of security type of pre-screen, but that way both sides kind of know the situation kind of coming up or going into it. And as far as the I guess, as far as the agencies involved, it definitely does get tricky as far as reciprocity goes especially within the intelligence community. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. If you're coming into a position with a different agency than the one that granted you your clearance, just kind of, be prepared for that and understand that there may be sort of a waiting game involved in that. So again, kind of just going in eyes wide open with that as well. But within the DoD space and within sort of the other federal government agency spaces, like I said, within the civil and health, it's generally, you have that clearance through your time in the service and through OPM. It's not really an issue to kind of transition that over right away.
Great. So Steve, I'm going to start with you on this one. All right. So that's the warning order, right? But this is about resumes, okay? And I think that's important is because, as you all know, resumes is just really it's a daunting task if you're not familiar with it, first of all. Second of all, it's, it is the entry to everything you do. So the virtual career for tomorrow. I mean, somewhere during that little booth time that someone will get, they're going to be asked to submit their resume. It's the first thing that you as talent acquisition recruiters see, look at, and you either toss it aside or move it along. So Steve, can you give us a little bit of, about the resume? Talk about the resume. Maybe there's a couple helpful hints that you had over the years that can help those. Remember, the audience here is those transitioning service members, veterans, military spouses. We often write jargon. The military spouses might have a gap on it. maybe you can just kind of help us out as we get ready to apply for one of your 3 great organizations.
The biggest challenge I see with veterans and in this space over a decade doing it is putting experience to paper, and they leave out the experience they get, the intangibles that you get in the military, and how that matches up to that specific role that you're looking for matters specifically. Outside of probably the 3 of us on this call, and if you're going to get a standard recruiter that doesn't know military lingo and jargon and acronyms are insane with the Department of Defense. The Army book alone that I still keep here is huge. Just the Army. So it's, yeah, you're going to get bounced because they're not going to know what to look for. So I always say it's a two-way street. Here at PayPal, every recruiter is aware that if they see a service member resume, they're going to come to me first, and they're going to ask, help me put this down, help me understand this, because it's part of the education process, and it's also our job here to know how to educate the hiring teams as well. And I constantly tell the hiring managers, think of the intangibles. Look at what they bring to the table, the life experience. So putting a pen to paper, yes, definitely a challenge, but try to match what your experience, what you learned in the military, things you did specifically. It could be something that you never thought of, but yes, you did it and it just was normal to you, and how that applies to that specific role that you're looking for. The other part of it is, obviously you have 3 of us on here. You have information at your fingertips. I'd tell you, I get more outreach on LinkedIn and emails from veterans asking me can you put me in touch with the right person here? And I always pass it along. Yes, could it be overwhelming at times? My LinkedIn inbox is out of control, but use your network, leverage it. Leverage someone to get you the foot in the door and put you in touch with the right person. Because if you're just going to go blind applying right up, just going mass of applicants, first off, at least on our side, I can see how many roles you apply for, and you give an image that you're throwing stuff to the wall and hoping it sticks. I mean, that's something you don't want to do. And the other part of it is, like I said, it's a lack of education. So you have to, be very specific in target and network. So I didn't do it fully on paper, but think outside the box, for sure.
Good advice. Data?
Yeah, so as far as, and I wrote a few things down here, and I would echo a lot of what Steve said, but as far as jargon, think about, what I always tell people is, think about if you were to, transitioning out of the military, you ran into your high school English teacher and they don't know anything about the military. How would you explain what you did in the military when they ask, hey, what have you been up to? That's kind of a good way of thinking about how to demilitarize your resume, and the jargon is being able to explain it to somebody who hasn't seen you in however many years, and they've asked what you've been doing, and it's someone that you want to explain kind of your program to, or your progression to. As far as the mil spouse gap, so I think the biggest thing to tell mil spouses is when you have that objective or that career summary that's on the very, very top of your resume, you'll oftentimes see 10-year military veteran or Air Force veteran. It's okay to say military spouse with 10 plus years experience, and that immediately lets us know if we do see gaps, we know why. The corporate community and the hiring community and talent acquisition community and just the military hiring community in general over the past probably 5 to 6 years has gotten a lot better, understanding that the power and that the benefit that mil spouses bring to the table. And there's been a lot of education in the talent acquisition space around that. And so if you just say, hey, mil spouse with however many years of project management experience, that immediately lets us know that, hey, this gap is probably because of PCSing. And when they talk to you, they'll just clarify that information. But just make sure that you're putting things in there that, show that you're continuously learning, educating yourself, doing things, you know, you may have had a year, you know, break, but during that year time, you got a certification or you did this. So just make sure you're putting those things on there from a milspouse perspective. The other thing in general that I would say when it comes to resumes is recruiters spend an average of 6 seconds going through your resumes. We go through hundreds of resumes every single day. We don't have a system that kind of filters you, so it's actually human eyes. And so anything that you can do to help recruiters bring their eyes to what you want them to know, I always tell people in that summary at the very, very top is bold text those important words that you want them to know, like clearance or PMP or business development professional, whatever those things may be. Just bold text those important target words because it brings their eyes right to it. If you do have a clearance, make sure to put that on there. That's very important. As far as length, I get a lot of, well, I was told only 1 page. I think with the exception of IT and cyber professionals that have a long career, 2 pages is a good place to be. I think if you're like a developer, you have all these languages, you know, I think pushing it to kind of 3 is okay, because you do have a lot of kind of languages and stuff you got to put in there. But, you know, definitely don't. I had a gentleman the other day tell me I have a 7-page resume. That's too long. Don't submit a 7-page resume. um, you know, the other thing I would say is, as when you're going through the resume process, is number one, you're never going to make everybody happy. I have different preferences than Steve and Alex, and so you just got to do the best that you can and get that general information, and the most important information on there for your individuals. And with that said, having a main resume that has every single thing that you've ever done on it, and that's going to be your living, breathing document, and it has everything on there. Every time you get a new skill or certification, you throw it on there, and then for whatever role you're applying for, you're able to copy and paste for that. So you should have probably 3 to 4 different resumes. I have 4, my main and 3 other ones. Then they're targeted to certain types of roles, if you will. So if you're a software developer and you're full stack, maybe you have one that's targeted to front end and another one to back end. You know, that's probably not the best example, but it's what came to my mind. So, you know, you should have a main one that has everything, just like your LinkedIn should. So make sure you're keeping up on your LinkedIn. That's your virtual resume. And then, you know, the last but not least, just echoing what Steve said, use your network. 80% of jobs are done by networking. Long gone are the days where you can apply for something and get a call back. That's very, very few and far between. A lot of companies have huge employee referral campaigns. I know we do over 60% of employee referrals. So use your network, use LinkedIn, come to Steve, come to me and say, hey, I'm interested in this job. It may be on the Amazon side and the ops side, but I'm going to find a recruiter for you and I will get you in contact with them. So use that network, use the people that you know. You guys have a lot of tools at your disposal, so please use those. That's what I would say.
Yeah, Theta, do me a favor, take a look at the 2 questions that came in. They're probably both through. There's a nice long one from Miguel. I'll let you tackle that in a second. You come back, and then maybe at the same time come back and talk about the gaps for the military spouses. That was a little, you answered some, but maybe you want to address those. But I'll I'll give you a chance to read that, and then I'll go to Alex and then Steve, I think or I'm sorry, I already asked Steve the resume question. Alex, anything on this?
Yeah, sure. Let me just mention a couple things. Just kind of along the lines of what's already been mentioned, right? As far as, you know, making sure you're able to network and have points of contact to be able to follow up with. Just to kind of give you like an idea. So within, you know, the kind of talent acquisition community, we've put a lot of resources and money and time into being able to get jobs and job postings, you know, to candidates and applicants, you know, basically anywhere in the world, and, you know, optimize being able to apply through, you know, a mobile platform, apply, you know, through your phone, and really have them show up, right? Search engine optimization, have them show up, you know, whenever you're looking at a company, even if you're just looking at a company, right, through social media or something like that. What we're still sort of catching up on right now is figuring out a way to sort of best be able to sift through all of those applicants. Because when you have a recruiter that has, you know, 60, 70 requisitions, and each requisition, you know, has, you know, a couple hundred applicants, right? You can kind of do the math there. There's no way they're reviewing every single applicant, right? So Steve mentioned, right, like don't just blindly apply and then just, sit back and say, okay, I applied to a handful of positions with a few companies. Now I just sit back and wait. You as a job seeker, you have to be more proactive than that. And that's where, communities like Hiring Our Heroes and the events and the ability to network really comes into play and can help there. And then one thing I want to mention just when, because, tailoring your resume and everything was pretty much covered. There's a good website called tagcrowd.com. So TAG, and then crowd, CROWD, I believe. I think it's .com. But just Google that, and it's a great website where what it does is it kind of will look through. I mean, you can copy and paste text, but you can also put in a website URL. So for example, you could pull a job posting, and you can just plug in that URL, and it'll do, it'll look through and sort of do a display of what words and what phrases kind of are mentioned most often. So, Theta mentioned have different formats of a resume, and then the summary of experience that you can, quickly sort of tweak and tailor to that specific job description. But that website can be really helpful when you're looking at some different job descriptions, just to see, okay, what are they mentioning over and over again, right? Because it's easy enough to say, okay, this position requires 5 years, a degree, secret clearance. Okay, you can answer the mail on that pretty easily. You either have it or you don't. But using that site and looking through a job and seeing in a job description, what words or phrases seem to be mentioned more and more, can kind of be helpful in saying, okay, is there, because each job description, maybe it's taken directly from a statement of work. Maybe there's a little bit more of that manager or that recruiter kind of in that job description. You never really know. There's no one universal format. But being able to write your resume towards the, specific position and, the people behind that position, right? Because that's the audience, right? You have both the corporate audience, right? You want to make sure you're writing towards the culture of the company that you're looking at, but also even within that, sort of you want to write towards the people that were kind of behind that job position that's being posted, because it's still, it's still a manual process, so it's not, like I said, it's not sort of a one size fits all approach. So that can be helpful just to kind of recognize that you want to capture that audience. And then furthermore, you want to make sure you have an ability to follow up on it so that, they're actually looking at your resume and application.
Excellent input on the resume. Real quick, and I'll come back to Theta. But so those of you listening, we've been talking about resumes. But if you're looking for a free resume engine, and I would advise you to, for veterans especially, but there are a lot of free stuff out there. Is what I call it, free chicken, right? And resumeengine.org is one of Hiring Our Heroes ones that we have built with our partners at Fastport. It is a great resume engine tool. I highly advise you to go there and use it if you need help writing your resume. And then if you're military spouse, mycareerspark.org is a resume specific to military spouses. There are others out there like Indeed as well, and these are all for free. So I highly recommend you use that. And I think I'll ask Jackie if she can maybe put those resources in the chat box for those of you listening. So I'll come back to Theta. There's a series of questions. I think we'll answer them all if we go to Theta to talk about some things. Theta, I'll just turn it over to you and maybe you can answer the questions that came in.
Yeah, so I'll start with the first one from Miguel talking about the AWS apprenticeships and the SkillBridge program that's listed. So so when we talked about earlier and how COVID was affecting us and everything like that, so SkillBridge or the apprenticeship program is the program that I am aligned to. And, kind of with how we talked about earlier with the churn and the interns coming in, we ended up canceling those summer cohorts. But with that said, we are working with the business and securing a couple more. We're trying to secure as much as we can for fall. So there's one coming. So if you're interested in this apprenticeship program, hopefully this one that we got approved, and I can't talk about it right now because it's not up yet, but the one that we got approved will be interesting for you. But my team and leadership is working very, very closely closely with the businesses and trying to see what kind of headcount we can get so we can continue on our program in fall. With that said, obviously not a guarantee. So my suggestion would be, let's look at some other opportunities. If you're interested in kind of doing something like that, like the fellowship program, we do HOH fellowships, and then things like that. So there's other opportunities there, direct hire or fellowship. And I know you said you're a reserve, so we're very supportive of the Garden Reserve environment. So, we have a lot of actually employees that got called recently with certain things that are happening. So we have a little bit of our workforce that is out and about doing their second job. So yeah, we can definitely talk. Feel free to link in with me. So yes, as far as the SkillBridge program that's listed on the apprenticeship site, that is really a pooling rec for the SkillBridge individuals. So a lot of times what we see is people that are wanting to use SkillBridge, they get in touch with us really high ahead of time, like 18 months out, right? 12 months out. And so that's just almost a pooling rec for those individuals that are interested in coming in through the apprenticeship program. It's like a pool, right? So being a reservist, if you're not going to use a SkillBridge program, which you can't right now, you would not apply to that, but hold on tight. Probably within the next week or so, there will be another regular apprenticeship opportunity up there that doesn't require SkillBridge. So answers that question. Yeah.
Good job, Dave. How about Steve? Steve, let me give internships or any apprenticeship programs involved in the, in our program. Can you touch on that? And I'll go to Alex as well.
We get involved in the fellowship.
Come a little closer to the mic, Steve.
Again, you're not loud enough. Okay, better.
Perfect. Right
okay.
there.
To answer your question, yes, we are involved in the fellowship program. We just got involved in January, so the first 2 cohorts. The internship program that we did, college teams, did not get canceled this year, so it did go off remotely. And there are, I know for fact, veteran-specific leaders in there that look for veterans for their internships. So it is opportunities across the board.
Excellent. How about Alex, please? Because there was a question early on, Alex. I've been saving it to this right time to talk about, the corporate fellowship program and internships and SkillBridge at large. So go right ahead.
Yeah. So just really quick, we are a partner with the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship program. We have participated in the last 3 cohorts, and we are looking to expand in the upcoming cohort that is going to be kicking off here pretty soon as far as the resume release. We kind of on a case-by-case basis, we are involved in a DoD SkillBridge kind of at large. And then as far as just overall, we have a pretty robust college and university internship program. So certainly not exclusive, just to veterans and military spouses, but any full-time student, we have a considerable number of internships. And we have actually a subsection on our career site for internship and new graduate opportunities, which is a good place to kind of look for that.
Great. So we got we're going to say 5 minutes left, and this is great. This is going great. I have a few more questions, but we might forgo some of those, and they're rolling in. So I think we've been extremely informative, but I'm gonna ask a couple things real quick, and so if you would, but tomorrow is a virtual career fair that some of you participating in, and we'll all eventually participate in the Hiring Heroes career fairs throughout the summer. So how about some tips though? You 3 have been involved in this space for a long time. How's some quick tips, Steve, maybe that you've got for somebody who's now they're registered, they're going to go sit in tomorrow, and they're going to either enter your room or not, but they'll decide, but how to navigate the virtual hiring fair?
Research. You come in saying, this is what I'm targeting, this is where I want to go, this is what I'd like to do. Even if you're going to browse the career site, that's super helpful to me, because we could have a discussion on that. Yes, it may not be my direct role that I'm supporting, but I've hired for every role here except, go figure, HR. I'm in HR, but there's only org I've never hired in PayPal. So do your research, come prepared. you can hear it in my accent. I'm a New Yorker, so for me, it's gonna be very conversational.
Great. How about Theta?
Yeah, echoing what Steve said, we won't have physical bodies there, but we do have a booth with some information and links in there. So come prepared so that when you are sending emails and connecting with people, you can say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Here's my resume. Know kind of where you want to go, what you want to do. And then, obviously browsing and saying, hey, this particular job is what I'm interested in. And that just helps us tremendously. So don't come in and say, what jobs do you have for me? Because no recruiter likes to hear that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. How about Alex?
Yeah, just to echo, I'll be on tomorrow. We should have a few other individuals attending as well. Just do your research up front. And honestly, it's a one-on-one chat, the format, and, you have a limited period of time. So just do your best to come prepared to speak to, specific opportunities within the organizations you're looking at. And again, sort of do some of that research and fact finding and specific position identification ahead of time.
Yeah, I'll take a couple extra minutes to go over because this was really important, the culture. If you're a veteran, you're going from one culture to another one, but you have great companies right there. I'll go back to Steve if that's okay and just go around the screen here. Well, we're nervous, we're apprehensive. Tell us a little bit about the culture of your company, Steve, and why you think we'd be a good fit, a veteran, military spouse, or service member into PayPal.
Great question, and this is I have this conversation with potentially any applicant and any all the fellows so far. We fit that stereotype, that startup mentality, Silicon Valley, free spirit, all that stuff, and we fit it. And I always have to tell people, especially a transitioning veteran, that you're used to a structure. I don't know, rigid is not the right choice of words I want to use, but that's what's coming to mind. But structure, and we're the polar opposite of that. Like, I tell candidates, this is not even veteran, when I get this question, I say we work hard, but we have fun. I always get asked in normal times what attire is, and that is my most fun part conversation because it's funny. And I always tell people our CEO is the worst dressed person in the company. So he will literally wear cowboy boots, a pair of flip-flops in the summer. So some of the fellows who actually went in the first cohort show up in office, they're like, all they know is military attire. And here you'll see everything from jeans to shorts to flip-flops. So there's no micromanagement here. You just go and you go as you please and get the job done. And I guess the famous term is you get enough rope to hang yourself, essentially. So it's a very laid back startup Silicon Valley mentality of just attire and how we go. I mean, I do not schedule any calls before 10 o'clock Pacific for the West Coast. That's early. Even our New York office is a little better. It's probably still does the financial industry, so it'll get there by 9. But for the most part, there's no set hours. We don't track PTO. You just take it as you please, as an example. So very startup-esque. So that's is legit.
Thanks, Steve. So me sitting at attention for the last hour is probably not the culture.
Yeah, like I'm in a t-shirt.
All right.
In a sport
How
coat.
Theta, please. Good for you all. Theta, how about Amazon? Listen,
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I can talk about our culture is if you don't know and haven't heard, there's these little things called the leadership principles. If you haven't heard about those or don't know about those, please Google those and learn those, because that's our culture right there. There's a lot of companies that say one thing and don't really kind of add up to their mission statement. I've worked for a few of those companies, but I can tell you firsthand knowledge, we eat, breathe, and sleep those leadership principles every single day. We make, high impacting financial decisions based on those leadership principles. And, everything from promo to, seeing how you're doing to your day-to-day work will be based on those leadership principles. So we're very objective and data-driven environment. It's very, it depends. It doesn't really matter what people may personally think of you. It's, are you doing your job, and how do you measure up, or how do you connect with those leadership principles? So if you don't know what those are, please look at those, and they range of a wide variety of things. And that's probably the most important thing is, can you assimilate to that? Can you eat, breathe, and live those things? And it's funny because those leadership principles play very well with the military community if you haven't read them. And just kind of those intangible skills about data and customer obsession and getting the job done and frugality. So that's the biggest thing about our culture is that's for real. As far as like what Steve was saying, we're very Google-esque, if you will. There's no, like, do not come to an interview, Adam, I'm going to pick on you with a sport coat like Adam, because you will be looked at funny. But yeah, so, t-shirts, we're all on Zoom, we're all drinking coffee, we got kids in the background, we get it, right? Like, we understand. We love dogs. If you don't know about Seattle and Amazon, there's dog friendly everywhere. So yeah, that's kind of our culture. We work very, very, very hard though, but we will compensate for it. So you will get paid well for all your hard work. So
thanks. I'm just doing what my boss told me. Remember, you do what your boss told me. He said wear a sport coat, so I'm doing that. But how about Alex, real quick, culture, Leidos, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. So, Leidos being a government contractor and a lot of our work within the defense and intelligence space, I'd say I would describe our culture as very mission oriented. And what I mean by that is the vast majority of our work is within, the government space and working directly with, service members, working directly with government personnel and other contractors as well. But it's really all about mission execution. So, the company, I wouldn't describe us as, too professionally conservative as far as, government contractors go as a whole. But in general, we tend to lean more towards, that type of culture. I'll just say that it is something, while the culture is very mission oriented and all about kind of, again, mission execution, it's a lot flatter than the service, and there's going to be a lot more of sort of, less sort of that chain of command environment and a lot more of that collaborative type of environment. Where you have a lot of people sort of at the same level, so to speak, and that, you just kind of have to work together to again, kind of execute on the parameters of the contract and that mission. I'd say like job titles and things like that, especially at Leidos, right? Like it's not the same, right? You can have a job title, of program manager, right? But it's all about sort of your work ethic and your reputation within the organization, because we're a large company, and again, what's printed on your business card or what's in your signature block isn't really what people are going to necessarily like answer to, right? It's gonna be your reputation within the company. And if you're, you have a reputation as somebody who gets things done and people can come to and you're willing to kind of help out, then, that's going to go a long way in getting you sort of the support and feedback you need internally. So just kind of going in and understanding that is really helpful. And the last thing I'll just say about that is also just, when you go through the interview process and you're speaking to those that you're going to be working with or for directly, talk to them about that, because, yes, you'll have a culture overall, but understanding, the culture of the team you're walking into and that work environment and that particular customer, maybe, sometimes those are very unique. So it helps to kind of have a good understanding of that as you go through the process.
Well, listen, this is tremendous. We could go on for probably another hour because you guys are a wealth of knowledge, and the questions, as you know, are coming. I think we've answered everybody's question. That's really what's most important to me. But first of all, I want to thank you on behalf of Hiring Our Heroes and for not only your involvement and partnership with us, but what you're doing each individually, personally, to help our veterans and military spouses find meaningful employment with your companies. And as Steve said earlier, it's about a collaborative effort. It's not just about PayPal, it's about the whole collaboration. So I appreciate that attitude. You guys are just great. For all of you listening, if you're interested in the virtual career fair or any of ours throughout the series that we have throughout the center, please go to hiringourheroes.org career community and register. These companies will be participating in that just as well. One more thing though, if they wanted to contact you all, let me just quickly go start from the top of my screen. Steve, how would they contact you? You're on mute, so maybe.
I unmute. Either connect on LinkedIn or just send me an email, first initial at last name.
Yeah, got it. And how about Theta?
Yeah, LinkedIn, or send me an email as well. So JOH first name at Amazon.com.
Thank you. And Alex?
Yeah, so my email, similar to Steve's, is my last name, Verholst, first initial A, at Leidos.com. And also, if you just look up Alex Verholst on LinkedIn, I should be the first person to pop up there. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
All right. Again, thank you all. This is recorded, so if you're interested in going into our career community to take a look at it again, if you think you missed something, please go ahead and do so. For all of you, have a safe day. I wish you all the best, and this is going to end our session. Thank you.